You stopped reaching out, and this time they didn't either. No double text. No, just checking in. No late-night message pretending nothing happened. Just silence. And at first, that silence feels unbearable. You check your phone more than you want to admit. You replay the last conversation. You wonder if they're relieved, if they even noticed, if this is exactly what they wanted all along. Here's what most people don't understand about the moment when both you and an avoidant partner go no contact. It doesn't end the connection. It exposes it. Because while you're sitting there feeling the weight of the silence, something very different is happening inside them. Right now, their nervous system feels calm. Not because they don't care, not because you meant nothing, but because pressure is gone. When you were reaching out, asking for clarity, asking for emotional presence, asking for consistency, their system interpreted that as demand. And for someone with avoidant attachment, emotional demand feels like danger. So when contact stops from both sides, their brain registers safety. They can breathe again. There's no expectation to respond. No need to explain their distance. No risk of being pulled into vulnerability. For a moment, silence feels like relief. And this is the part that hurts the most to accept. Because while you're feeling anxious, they're feeling lighter. But here's what changes everything. They're used to that relief coming with a guarantee. They're used to knowing that even if they pull away, you'll eventually reach back. You always did before. You kept the connection alive. You softened the distance. You made sure it didn't fully break. But this time, you didn't. And when they realize that the silence isn't just temporary, when they start sensing that you might not come back to restore the emotional balance, something inside them shifts. Relief doesn't last forever. Because relief without control turns into uncertainty. And uncertainty is where the real story begins. At first, the relief feels steady. They sleep a little better. Their chest feels less tight. Their phone isn't a source of pressure anymore. And they tell themselves this proves something. They tell themselves the relationship was too much, too emotional, too demanding. This is the avoidant mind trying to regulate itself. When intimacy activates their attachment system, it creates discomfort. So the brain uses what psychologists call deactivating strategies. They downplay the connection. They focus on your flaws. They rewrite the narrative in a way that makes distance feel justified. And in the early days of no contact, that strategy works. They feel in control again, but here's what slowly starts to happen. Control without reassurance begins to feel unstable. Because even when they pulled away before, there was still evidence that you were there. You would reach out, you would react, you would keep the emotional current alive. Now there is nothing. No signal, no reaction, no emotional safety net. And the nervous system that first felt calm begins to scan for information. They check your social media. They reread old messages. They wonder what you're doing on a Friday night. Relief shifts into curiosity. Curiosity shifts into confusion. Because the story they told themselves, that you were too much, that this wasn't right, that distance was necessary, starts clashing with a new fear. What if you're actually gone? Avoidants rarely fear losing someone while that person is still pursuing them. The pursuit keeps abandonment at a safe distance. It allows them to feel desired without risking vulnerability. But when pursuit disappears, the illusion of control disappears with it. And that's when something deeper surfaces. Fear. Not always dramatic fear, not panic, but a quiet, persistent unease. They start wondering why you're not reaching out. They replay moments in their head. They imagine you moving on. And here's where many women misinterpret what happens next. You may start seeing subtle signals. A story view within minutes. A random like on an old photo. A casual, "Hey, how have you been?" It feels small, harmless, almost friendly. But it's not neutral. These are emotional probes. They're not reaching out to reconnect. They're reaching out to measure access. Are you still available? Is the door still open? Can they re-establish contact without addressing the emotional distance that caused the silence in the first place? Because real vulnerability would require something much harder. It would require admitting they felt the loss. It would require acknowledging the impact of their withdrawal. And for an avoidant nervous system, that level of exposure feels threatening. So instead, they test. If you respond warmly and quickly, their anxiety settles. If you don't respond at all, their uncertainty grows. And that uncertainty forces a choice. Either they confront their fear of intimacy, or they retreat back into distraction, work, friends, new connections, anything that restores emotional distance. This is the turning point. Because silence doesn't just remove pressure, it removes distraction. And without distraction, the avoidant is left alone with one uncomfortable question. Was the distance protecting them, or costing them something real? While they are navigating relief, curiosity, and fear, something equally powerful is unfolding inside you. But it doesn't start that way. At first, the silence hurts. It feels like rejection, like abandonment, like confirmation of your worst fear. Your attachment system activates immediately. You want to reach out. You want clarity. You want to fix the rupture before it becomes permanent. Your mind searches for solutions. Maybe you were too emotional. Maybe you asked for too much. Maybe if you send one thoughtful message, you can restore the connection. This is the anxious part of you trying to survive. Because when connection feels threatened, your nervous system reads it as danger. It tells you that losing them means losing safety. So the urge to break no contact doesn't mean you're weak. It means you bonded. But here's where something important begins to shift. When days pass and you still don't reach out, you start experiencing something unfamiliar. Space. At first, that space feels empty, heavy, echoing. Then slowly, it begins to feel different, quieter. Without the constant monitoring of their mood, without analyzing delayed responses, without adjusting yourself to avoid triggering their withdrawal, your body begins to regulate. You sleep more deeply. You think more clearly. You start noticing how much energy you were spending trying to maintain emotional closeness. And with that awareness comes grief. Not just grief over them, but grief over yourself. Over how much you minimized your needs. How often you accepted crumbs and called it progress. How frequently you carried the emotional weight of two people. Silence becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, you see something clearly for the first time. You were working harder than they were. You were stretching further. You were compromising deeper. And slowly, the narrative changes. Instead of, why didn't they choose me? It becomes, why was I trying so hard to be chosen? That shift is everything. Because real detachment doesn't happen when you stop texting. It happens when you stop negotiating your worth. There is a difference between performative silence and healing silence. Performative silence is waiting, checking your phone, hoping they notice your absence. Healing silence is different. Healing silence is choosing not to abandon yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. It's recognizing that love should not require you to shrink. And as this realization settles, something inside you stabilizes. You stop romanticizing their potential. You start observing their patterns. You see that distance was not mysterious. It was consistent, predictable, protective for them, and costly for you. The more grounded you become, the less reactive you feel. Their social media activity doesn't shake you the way it used to. Their absence doesn't feel like proof of your inadequacy. It starts to feel like information. Information about their capacity, information about what you were tolerating. And this is the quiet transformation most avoidants don't anticipate. Because when you stop chasing, you don't just remove pressure from them. You remove distortion from yourself. You begin choosing from clarity instead of fear. And in that clarity, something powerful happens. You realize that the silence is no longer about getting them back. It's about getting yourself back. Eventually, something happens. Not always quickly, not always dramatically, but eventually, the silence forces movement. For some avoidants, that movement looks like a small message. Hey, I was thinking about you. Hope you're doing well. It seems simple. But what matters is not the message. It's the energy behind it. Because there are two very different kinds of return. The first is the breadcrumb return. This is when they reach out without acknowledging the distance, without naming what happened, without taking responsibility for the withdrawal that created the silence in the first place. They test the temperature. If you respond warmly, they feel relief. If you respond cautiously, they retreat. Nothing has changed internally. They still fear depth. They still avoid emotional exposure. They just don't want to lose access. And access is not the same as intimacy. The second kind of return feels different. It's slower, more uncomfortable, less polished. They don't just say hello. They reference the silence. They admit they pulled away. They acknowledge that something inside them was triggered. They may not have perfect language for it, but they show effort. And effort is evidence of growth. Because growth requires tolerating discomfort. It requires facing the fear of losing yourself in connection and choosing to stay present anyway. This is where your clarity becomes essential. Because by the time they return, you are not the same woman who entered the silence. You have perspective now. You understand their patterns. You understand yours. So when they reappear, the question is no longer, do they miss me? The real question is, are they capable? Capable of consistency, capable of emotional availability, capable of moving toward you instead of away when things feel intense. And here is the truth that changes everything. Silence does not create capacity, it reveals it. If they come back unchanged, the pattern will repeat. If they come back accountable, something new becomes possible. Not guaranteed, but possible. And the difference is no longer confusing to you. Because you are no longer evaluating them from fear, you are evaluating them from stability. So what really happens when an avoidant and you both go no contact? The silence becomes a mirror. It reflects their defenses, and it reflects your growth. For them, it exposes whether distance was protection or avoidance, whether they are willing to confront the fear that intimacy brings, or continue choosing emotional safety over emotional depth. For you, it reveals something even more important. It shows you who you are without chasing, without over-explaining, without carrying the connection alone. And in that space, you discover your baseline, your standards, your capacity to love without abandoning yourself. Silence does not destroy what is meant to grow. It filters what was surviving on imbalance. If they rise to meet you, you will see it in their consistency. If they don't, you will feel it in your clarity. Either way, you win. Because the real shift was never about getting them back. It was about coming back to yourself. If this resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and like this video. Choose growth over chasing.